All right. Hi, everybody. I'm a loving parent in training named Billy. And yeah, for those of you on the recording, you missed 3 minutes of silence. So we apologize. So if you want to catch up, hit pause and do 3 minutes of silence. There's so much, it's probably the most bang for your buck out of anything I've learned in recovery is just is small spaces of silence. I chair a meeting at another fellowship, and the other fellowship's not AA, by the way, and it's not Al-Anon. So just imagine it's even more distracted. And I chair a meeting on once a week, and we have a moment of silence. And I've been implementing the three minutes of silence, and it's just so powerful. Like it just seems to like magically like settle the room down, settle myself down. Even just 3 minutes. I remember one of my favorite spiritual teachers, and I'm not going to say her name because I'm not trying to break the 10th tradition. Whether it is or not, I'm not really sure. But to be safe, I'm not going to say her name anyway. But she's just like one of these people that I really, really like, really look up to. I think she's just like a spiritual giant. She's really old. She's elderly now. I think she's in her 80s. But I remember I was in this listening to one of her teachings, and somebody asked her. They asked her a question, and they said, "What is surrender?" Now, mind you, I'm listening, right, and I'm thinking, all right, this is like somebody who's going to have the answer to that right off the top of her dome, and I'm paying attention. So they asked this lady that's kind of famous, "What is surrender?" And you could tell that she didn't have an answer, right away, that she had to think about it, which made it even better. And she paused and she went, huh, like nobody's ever, like she's been teaching meditation for like 30 years and nobody has ever asked her that. Like, really? Like, it was crazy. And she paused and she goes, huh. And she said, breathing deeply into the body. And I was like, and you know what I mean? Like, where's the end? Like, that's it. And like, it just goes to show you that, like, the most powerful for me, the most powerful parts of recovery of spirituality is just simple. It's the simplest things, man. Surrender is literally breathing deeply into my body. And to bring it into ACA, like that's some good information. I learned that type of stuff early when I came into recovery. My first 30 days in recovery, again, outside issue, but I got a book that talks about living in the now. And in the book, and I'm getting to ACA, believe me, with this, I'm segueing in. And in the book, it talks about how all my problems, now, mind you, I had come off like total insanity, crazy, drug crazed, drug addict off the streets, just, everything you could think of. And I'm totally abstinent. My detox didn't do what they do now and, get really fancy, but I wasn't taking anything. And I got this book, and the book talked about, because my segue into ACA was Narcotics Anonymous. I didn't I didn't get off the crazy boat right in and land with you guys. It took me 14 and a half years of working a 12 steps program and Al-Anon and AA before, my first 3 years. But the book was simple. It's like all your problems are your conditioned thinking, and your conditioned thinking is not in the now. Your conditioned thinking is past and future. So the solution, because the guy that wrote the book, I don't think he's an adult child, but the guy that wrote the book said, and the way to get free from your conditioned thinking is to practice presence. And this guy doesn't use the mindfulness term like we do. I think he likes to use language that is more broad, that more everybody can relate to. So the word this guy uses is presence. So I bought in, man. I'm like, sign me up, bro. He said, there's space between me and my thinking. You mean there's actually a way where my thinking doesn't run my life anymore? That's actually a thing. And I put it into practice immediately. And I actually found that, yes, you can observe your thoughts. Yes, you can practice being in your body. Yes, you can practice presence. And that is the antidote to this conditioned thinking. Now, me as a drug addict, I took the book to the NA meeting, and believe me, as far as 10th tradition goes, NA people are way more hardcore than ACA people. So I brought the book in as a newcomer to the NA meetings. This is just to show you guys how extra I am, how I belong in ACA. I brought the book to the because we can be extra. Me and Heather kid about it a lot. We're some extra people, man. God bless our souls. Like we really can get extra about a lot. I love the word extra because it's just because I'm extra. So anyway, I brought the book to the meeting, and the people were like, "Yeah, you need to get a basic text, and you need to get a sponsor." Because I would get that book and still go use drugs. But my point is this: after practice and presence for 14 and a half years and working a 12 steps program and Narcotics Anonymous, and then getting to the point where like, holy crap, I need something more. So I start going to Al-Anon and then everything like that. But after 14 and a half years, meditation, kind of looks like this for me a lot of days. Like I'll sit down at a chair and I'll use like the washing machine to ground me into the now while my mind's doing the grinding, by the way. I'm using the sounds of the washing machine to ground me into the now. A lot of times, and I'm using the English language, so it's very limited. So the terms sound kind of judgy, but believe me, anything that's even a hint of self-judgment has no power in it to change me personally. But the terminology sounds kind of will come across a little judgy sometimes. That's my caveat for the rest of the share. But meditation looks like me to sit in front of the dishwasher, and after I'll think, and then I'll realize I'm thinking. Then I'll go back to my breathing. Then I'll get in a few breaths. Maybe I'll get a whole 30 seconds, and then I'll probably go back to think. And then I'll realize, oh shit, I got to check my phone because I was supposed to text so and so about this, that, or the third. And then like, oh shit, never mind. I'm supposed to be meditating. Let me put the phone down. Let me reset the timer for 15 minutes again. Let me set the dishwasher going, and so forth and so on. So that's what meditation looks like for me. And the reason why is because I haven't healed. I haven't healed. When I was a baby, man, I was born into a very dysfunctional family. Like, my dad and my mom were both adult children. My mom had been in at a mental institutions. My dad was very closed off, but he was a businessman, so he was stressed over money all the time. And I'm going to use a lot of absolutes. Nothing was always and all the time, but I'm going to say all the time. And I grew up in this chaotic childhood where my mom would wake up just screaming, and holy God, GD to hell, I never wanted to have children. And I was my parents' offspring. I was their child by blood. And I had 3 older sisters. Now, my 3 older sisters were from a previous marriage of my mother. She was married to a Marine in Quantico, Virginia. And the story goes that he abandoned her with 3 babies and took off with all the money. So my dad was the original, I'm just going to say it because it sounds funny, Captain Save-A-Ho. He was, and I come from it honestly, he was a rescuer. Let's say that. My mom wasn't a hoe. But he bought her an air conditioner and they got married. So my father took on this responsibility to raise these 3 girls. Well, he hadn't done the work that we're doing. And I grew up in a home where these 3 little girls, and where my older sisters were neglected, were emotionally abandoned, were not loved, the way little girls should be loved. Now, I grew up in that home as a spoiled golden child. I was spoiled. And I got the love the best they could do was where my mom. So let me go back. I'm going to try to stay in some sort. By the way, my mind's very distracted, but hopefully I'll jump from recovery to recovery. But I'm going to try to go in chronological order. So because I'm trying to like share calmly with you guys, not be all over the place. We'll work really hard at that. Which, fuck it, I'm just going to go there. So I just realized the other day, to the level of the abandonment that I had as a child, I was abandoned. My parents were never home. They were always at work, and I ran the streets. And what I realized in ACA, and I just realized the simplicity of what we're doing here for me, what ACA is doing here, it's very, very simple. Very simple. I was abandoned, and I spent the rest of my life abandoning myself. It's really that clear. I abandoned myself by running around and distracting myself with my thoughts and just running around. And, so there's two parts of this work that I'm doing in ACA. And one of the parts is the internal work. The internal work is, and I'm going to share with you guys my first time I did inner child work. And it was several years ago, and I didn't know what it was. I don't even think I might have heard of inner child work, but I really had zero information. This was years before ACA. I got a hold of another spiritual teacher, and I'm not going to say his name, but the practice was the diamond approach. And in this practice, this guy was not a Buddhist meditation teacher. He wasn't teaching for like to find no mind. This guy taught about bringing inquiry, and I guess that could be part of it as whatever. It doesn't matter. But his whole thing is to practice being in presence, but then bring in curiosity and be curious about what's going on inside your emotions and feelings to help you. And the purpose of this was not inner child work necessarily, but was just a way to be present longer. So this actually happened. So I'm sitting in front of my dishwasher. You guys know I like to use sounds a lot, right? I'm sitting in front of the dishwasher, and I started thinking and worrying about finances. And I got curious about that. And then all of a sudden, like the heavens opened up, and I saw myself as a small child in my home of origin that I grew up in. And I was a small child. And now I'm looking at myself as a child, and I saw my father. And I'm a little child, and I'm looking up at my father. I'm still meditating, but I'm with myself as a child. I'm doing inner child work, and not knowing what I'm doing, but I'm doing it. And I look up at my father, and I see him, and the words spoke very clearly to my spirit. And the words were, "That's not your shit. That worrying about finances all the time, that stressing over money." I'm telling you guys, I went for decades grinding about worrying about money. I always told myself I would never be my father because he was a hustler. And I liked that about him. He would like take book from his friends in town on football, and he was a hustler, man. He drove a brand new Cadillac, but lived in like a house that was 150 a month. And there's parts of that I admire. And I always told myself that I'll never let money have me like him. I will have money. And I became like what our literature says, I became my father. I became him, man. Where I worried and stressed over money for decades, but he wasn't a drug addict and I was. So I used drugs behind that. I would use drugs to get out of my thoughts. Like like the guy that wrote the book talks about present. I would use drugs to get there. So I'm sitting here meditating. So I'm a little child now. I'm looking up at my father, and it says, "That's not your shit." And I gently pushed him out of my bedroom, and I locked the door to the room. And I knelt down, and I started meditating with myself as a small child. And I started to heal from the effects of the dysfunctional childhood, and yeah. And I'm such a slow learner. When I found out about ACA, I have a friend that's he's in a meeting, by the way. I have one of my best friends, right? So we both met each other in recovery, and I've worked with this guy with meditation and loving presence and trying to help him like with that type of a thing because I sponsored him at one time in another fellowship. Well, this guy went to ACA, man. He's talking about ACA all the time for a year. Like we go out to lunch together. Bro, it never even dawned on me to go to ACA. Like I have to be pained up, man. It seems to me like I'm not going to speak that over myself, but in my past, pain is my teacher. Like get me into some pain, and it's always behind a relationship, and it's always behind a woman that I'm trying to rescue because I couldn't rescue my sisters, or it's behind the rupture of the dysfunctional family. So I'm trying to get with a woman. I'm trying to build that functional family that I didn't have as a child growing up, but I haven't done the work. So I'm getting to a woman who's predestined to abandon and neglect me, just like my parents. That's my story. You want me to share? She said I could share as long as I want. I could share for an hour just on those relationships. It would be funny. We would all laugh how crazy and toxic it was, but I don't think we got time for that. But fill in the blanks. It started in my 20s. You always know I'm on a second date because there's a U-Haul behind my car. I could go on and on, man. Major relationships and getting engaged. Another area I'm doing the work is with my 19-year-old. When I was 19, I got a drug charge, and my dad took me to Florida on the auto train and set me up in a room, and I became my own. I got on my own and started living on my own. And I'm in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm like 20 years old. But instead of going down to the beach and hanging out with kids my age, I would go to these hardcore dive bars and hang out with severe alcoholics and like homeless people because I'm so because you know, the effects of the dysfunctional childhood made me so insecure. I had to, stay drinking just to connect with people because the abandonment and neglect I had as a child wasn't just externally where my parents were never home because they were always running the company. It also was internally because they didn't teach me how to connect. Like nobody had conversations. Like we didn't talk. We didn't, sit down and, how are you? How's your day? Like, how are you feeling? What was school like? Like that didn't happen. And if it did, I don't remember. I know we had Sunday dinners. And I remember my mom wasn't the best cook, but she would always overcook the roast. And then my sister couldn't swallow it. So they'd make her sit there and for hours after the meal. And it was always some sort of bullshit, dude, some sort of drama. Or my dad just being a fucking ogre and so controlling and crazy with the girls, and they didn't give me any structure, any discipline, and none of that shit, dude. So here I am, 19 years old. So fuck it, I'm just gonna jump around. I'm not even trying to be somebody else, dude. I'm gonna jump around, man. I thought I was gonna be calm and go in chronological order throughout my life, but I'm bringing it right up into the here and now. So one way I'm doing the inner child work is making me and my 19-year-old are doing some things that are awkward because I'm very comfortable in this setting. I'm really comfortable with y'all. I'm comfortable with Al-Anon people. I'm comfortable with NA people, but I don't grow by always doing what's comfortable, man. I'm going to grow by doing some uncomfortable things. So I decided that I was going to start. Oh, plus I'm single, and no offense, but like it's just not a good idea to try to date women in recovery. I love y'all. God bless y'all. It's just not a good idea. It's not a good idea, not because y'all are so sick or not because I'm sick. It's just not a good idea, dude. We're in here getting raw, getting real, sharing vulnerable stuff. It's not a good look to try to pick a date out of that atmosphere. You know what I mean? Y'all know that. So I'm not saying it's always wrong. It can be right. If people have met each other in these rooms, like, God bless you, dude. Have at it. I'm just saying for me, it hasn't worked out well when I've done that. We don't have time for those horror stories either. So what I've been doing is I've been taking my 19-year-old to go do yoga. Oh, I know what it was. So I was going to kind of meet girls, I figured, well, they're into meditation, you know what I mean? So whatever. But what I found was in yoga, they're doing something at yoga that I believe in, which is full body meditation. And so I kind of went, to try to do this inner child work with my 19-year-old and maybe meet a girl. Who the fuck knows? But what I found out was that it's a really spiritual thing that they're doing over there, man, that they're like doing full body meditation. So, I've been trying to show up with my inner 19-year-old and do yoga. Well, I was, and then I stopped going and I started going back yesterday. I went to yoga. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday I went to yoga. So anyway, I'm going to start doing that. So back on the meditation. So what I'm finding is that first things first. A lot of the inner child work that I've been doing is with the inner child, with the inner baby. Because of the dysfunctional childhood, my mind's very distracted. So when I sit for meditation and I get curious about what's going on, and my mind starts getting distracted, like right away, I know that's from the inner baby. So I've been, meditating with the inner baby and starting the journey of healing with the inner baby. Another area that I've been doing the work is in the area of just like this uneasiness that I have in my spirit all the time and this unsettledness. So what I'm finding is that like a perfect example of how powerful this work is, man. I mean, we have Appendix C in a inner loving parent guidebook, but this work we can actually do like in the moment. And a perfect example is I was down in Richmond with my daughter, and we were it was like a hot day, and we had went to the botanical gardens, but we decided to go walk around and do some not shopping, but look at some shops. And I remember I started getting just irritable. And I was about 6 months into this work, and in the moment, I like checked in with myself, and I was like curious. I'm like, why am I so irritable? I'm like, oh shit, that's because of the dysfunctional childhood. There's this unsettledness going on, and I kind of had this like inner dialogue with my inner children in through the feelings that I was feeling, but with my mind, obviously. But I let my inner child know, like, oh wow, like that's from the dysfunctional family. Like you're unsettled because of the dysfunctional family. And the gist of it kind of like is like, but there's a new daddy in town and we ain't doing that. Like we're like, okay, we're connected to divinity and we don't have to live that way anymore. And I kind of gave my because a lot of the inner child work I find is just being present and just practicing the work. And it's like one time there was a reading that we had in the nighttime meeting that I go to where the reading was about crosstalk. And somebody in our WhatsApp chat said, yeah, man, I'm trying not to crosstalk my inner child. And I was like, what the fuck? that was like, so sometimes when I'm doing this inner child work, I don't need to, to mix it up with my inner child and meddle with him too much and give him too many directions, but I just have to be present with him, and just checking in with my inner child down there in Richmond with my daughter. Like, it's so crazy how this inner child work, you can actually do the work while you're with your physical child. So you're doing inner child work, you're reparenting your inner children so that you can be a better father to this physical human being flesh child that's right in front of you. I'm like, where were y'all at, dude? I've been like in Narcotics Anonymous spinning my fucking wheels, dude. Because those are just like two areas of the work I'm doing, man. You know, and I'm such a slow learner that like it's like, bro, like I was curious about like what's going on with this meeting. So I have a check-in with two other ACA people on Fridays at 9:30 where we do not appendix C necessarily, but the reparenting check-in chapter 9, the chapter 9 reparenting where it talks about grounding and who needs the loving parent. So we'll read the ground part on this and then we'll meditate for 3 minutes. And then so we do 1, 2, 3, 4 on chapter 9 of the reparenting check-in. And so I was like being curious about the feelings behind this meeting coming up. And then I was like, holy fuck, dude, like sometimes there's parts of my personality that are so entrenched in me that I think they're actually the true self me, they're me, but they're actually areas that they're actually an inner child thing to where like the inner child needs the loving parent and to be integrated back at some point because it actually isn't my true self. And one of that is that the way I abandoned myself, this is fucking just came to me like 2 hours ago, bro. Like one of the areas, because it all goes, and I just figured it all goes back to abandonment and self-abandonment. It's always abandonment, and now it's all self-abandonment. So all the work is in that area. It's in between those two. So where the self-abandonment was that I always have to be the center of attention. And I always have to get the laughs. And the recovery community gives me a platform for that. I'm sharing right now. I'm sharing right now. So this could be a great platform for my inner child to be like the kooky guy that gets all the attention. Some of that is really me. I am kooky. I've done a lot of acid. I'm not even mad at myself. But there is an area of my life where I'm abandoning myself because I need your attention, and it's just another way for me to not be still with my true self, in stillness. Not necessarily stillness of like I'm sitting still in a chair, but inner stillness. So it goes all the way back to when I read that book about presence. And the guy that wrote the book said, you just got to practice presence. And I'm like, that's good for you. You might not be an adult child. Maybe you don't qualify for ACA, but I do. I have to heal. In order for me to heal, I have to have the awareness of where the healing is. And I don't know who the fuck wrote that book, Loving Parent Guidebook, but if y'all know any of them, tell them thank you for me, man. It's the most spiritual document I've ever read. I mean, I'm like addicted to spiritual teachers. I mean, I know I listen to all of Ram Dass, like all of them, bro. But I never heard about this. I missed this somewhere. But actually, this is actually in one of my publishing houses that I go to. The guy that invented IFS or whatever, or not invented it, but the dude that came up with IFS. Um, like they always taught me in recovery, like it's like an onion being peeled. And then I listened to this dude on this Audibles book that I have, and he said, "No, it isn't." He said, "It's not like an onion." He said, "It's like a garlic bulb." And I'm like, what? Bro, like for 14 years, dude, I thought you had to keep doing the work so all these layers would get down to this center part of this onion and you'd stop getting in these dysfunctional relationships. Bro, 14 years clean. This is what got me into ACA. So I'm a rescuer, well, I'm not going to say my true self's not a rescuer. Clearly, I'll know what I'm saying, but I'm a rescuer. So at 2 years clean, this girl who wanted to come into like recovery that I knew from out there. I used to party with her peoples. I invited her in, so I started hanging out with her. So we ended up getting together. Now I didn't think it was bad because I knew her before I brought her into the rooms of NA. And I figured I'm not a creeper because I brought her in. If she goes back out, we're back to square one. Like, you know what I mean? Like I brought her in, so I'm allowed to creep on her type of shit. Like crazy, right? So, because I'm addicted to attention. Like I'm addicted to a woman looking at me while I spout all that good Gucci spiritual stuff or recovery stuff. That's part of my areas of work that I, have to look at. So I moved in her. So remember when I told you guys that I wasn't going to be like my father? I did the same exact thing. I moved a woman into my house with 3 children and tried to parent them kids, man. And I think if I would have gotten my dad's situation, I would have been way better. I believe I would have loved the shit out of those 3 little girls. I just believe that. I think that I could probably do it better. I don't know, whatever, dude. But this wasn't that because these kids were older, so they were already like set in their ways, man. Like 2 preteen girls and an 8-year-old boy, and I tell you what, man, when that thing ended, the pain behind that relationship, it really helped me surrender to recovery, and I really doubled down on my recovery practices and came through that whole thing smelling like a rose. But that was when I was 2 years clean. So at 14 years clean, or 12 years clean, I got with a girl because my mother used me to get something from me that she wasn't getting from my father. She smothered me with affection. And I know some of you guys are like, cry me a river, but hey, man, my buddy Michael knows. I mean, his mom was horrific, but he knows you know what I mean? I always think I have to like explain myself, dude. Like my dysfunction is qualified enough, man. I don't have to dumb you down. But so she smothered me with affection because she wasn't getting anything from my father. I never saw them kiss, hug, or show affection. But what it did to me was here's the effects. So this was the last relationship that got me into ACA. So this girl that I knew from the rooms of NA, she's somebody that I know. She was at a camp out and we started to hang out. And I meditate a lot. So I feel feelings of like higher power when I meditate. Like I can feel divinity and love and all these things when I meditate. And my parents are supposed to be like a higher power. They're supposed to love us like divinity loves me now. In a perfect world, your parents love you the way God loves you. It's that unconditional love. Okay. My mom was getting something from me. She wasn't getting from my father, not sexually, but it was emotional incest. So I hung out with this girl one day and I felt some kind of feeling behind that and immediately believed that she was meant for me. She was sent from God. Bam, I was in fantasy, man. Hardcore. Was friends with her for 2.5 years because I'm trying to surrender and let go and get out of God's way. You know what I mean? I'm trying to work my program so God can do what he needs to do so he can fix her up so she can get with me, so she can realize she's met with me. You know what I mean? I like the disease, the whatever you want to call it, the disease or whatever, the way it talks to me, it'll talk to me in spiritual terms because I'm so into spiritual stuff. So I'm in fantasy. So we got together and I was like, see, I told y'all it was from God. So then we broke up and I got the pain. She broke up and I got the pain behind that. And you know what happened when I got that pain? This was after 14 years clean. And the pain felt the same as it was when I was in those super toxic relationships where it was obviously not a good idea. The pain felt the same. And I knew I needed something more. So I started going to Al Anon more. And then I thought to myself, what about ACA? Michael does ACA. Well, shit. Look how much Michael's gotten. And he's way crazier than me. He's on here. He's way crazier than me. What the fuck? And then I call up Michael. He goes, we've been waiting for you. So like I went into a meeting, man, and I'm like, holy shit. So I got a sponsor on the second meeting, and then the sponsor abandoned me. But yeah, so that's what got me into ACA. And so with this girl, I was still in a fantasy after she broke up with me. And then when I found out she was dating her baby's dad again, the fantasy got crushed. And I had just watched this Godzilla movie, one of the Godzilla movie, or King Kong. It was one of the King Kong movies. And I just saw my fantasy get crushed like King Kong. And when a fantasy was crushed, I knew exactly where the work was. And I realized right soon after, the day after, that it was because of my mom using me for emotional incest, that I confuse fantasy with divinity. Like I'll think God's involved in something because I'm feeling romantic. But that's a hell of a trick to pull. You know what I mean? Pull my head out of the ass on that one, bro. But it's great. I'm grateful for it. You know, I'm grateful that I'm here. You know, I'm grateful that I can do the inner child guidebook. And I believe this book works better. This is just my opinion, with 3 to 5 people. That's my opinion. The big ass 60-person meetings, they're fun. I could go in there and share like Shakespeare and think I'm helping people. No. 3 to 5 people, man. You know, so I'm still looking for the perfect loving parent guidebook meeting, but I'm in a couple of them. And one of them, they're doing breakout rooms on Wednesday nights. And then, you know, and I'm open to still starting one with, I want to handpick the exact people I want at the exact time that's convenient for me. But that's kind of hard to find. You know, I got the 5 people already there, these old timers. But I think that's it, man. I mean, I shared for 30 minutes. I think I'm gonna wrap up with that. I appreciate you guys. Um, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and share with you my experience, strength, and hope. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, everybody.